Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. And for this video, I'll be walking you through the action on day 8 of the Abu Dhabi T10 League. And so there were three more games today, and today was the last day of the Super League stage. And so the three games today were the Deccan Gladiators versus the Maratha Arabians, the Qalandars versus the Delhi Bulls, and Team Abu Dhabi versus the Bangla Tigers. And so starting off with the first game, this game was more of a consolation game between two sides that were already out of the tournament. And so there were a few exceptions to the people who played. I mean, I don't think Narayan played. Pollard didn't play, and Mohammad Shahzad didn't play from the Deccan Gladiators. And so um, Imran Tahir was their captain, and they batted first. And so Prashant Gupta was opening the batting with Azam Khan. And so Prashant Gupta scored 35 of 16. It was a very good innings. And then Azam Khan got earlier. Sorry, he got out earlier, however, with 4 of 4. So Azam Khan got 4 of 4. And then I think Yasir Kaleem, I think that's the keeper batsman. He scored 28 of 16. And there was a phase where after those two had gone very well, there's a phase where in 9 balls, only 4 runs had been scored and 2 wickets were collected. And so this did put the brakes on in about, I would say, the 7th over, but like kind of the 7th to 8th over kind of area. But then Anwar Ali, he did so in the previous game where he almost won the game for his side. And he did it in this game again where he scored 39 of 12 not out. Taking advantage of Ishan Malhotra missing his lengths, and he gave 45 runs in 2 overs, Ishan Malhotra. And so it was because of that that the Deccan Gladiators could get this acceleration towards the end of the innings and get up to 120 for 4, which from where they were in that late middle phase, I would say they would have been very happy with. And they would have been very happy with that. And so this innings by the Maratha Arabians was honestly, I mean, I'm struggling to think what was worse, the 57 for 7 or this innings, because that innings, you saw them, it seemed like they still were, they still were in it, like they kind of lost their way, very quickly, but I'm saying that they did score a few boundaries at the start, and so you just thought that for already not that well-oiled Pune Devils team, you thought that it was just a capitulation, which, I mean, you were kind of surprised because their batting had done well in the previous games, but comparing it to this game, they just weren't in it from the start. I mean, look at Abdul Chakur, 9 of 14. I mean, if you think about it, would you rather 57 for 7 or a 9 of 14? I'm honestly, after watching both of those two, innings, I'm honestly not sure which one I would take, because just to watch this innings really was so, they were never in it at all, and they were 32 for 2 after 5 overs. And apart from Mossadegh Hussain, who scored an excellent 44 of 21, Ishan Malhotra opened the batting and scored a very, like Niall O'Brien described it, a very static 22 of 18 with only three. I mean, it's not about the boundary. 22 of 18, I mean, in this kind of a situation, just isn't too great. And the reason why I compared it with the 57 for 7 is because I know I said the whole thing about they were in it for a short while, but more than anything of that, I'm saying it just wasn't. In the first one, it was in the 57 for 7 was just a capitulation, and in this is the fact that it's 91 for 3 in 10 overs. So they had wickets in hand, and they just couldn't get the ball away. And apart from Mossadegh Hussain, everyone else struggled. And that this was honestly, I would say for me as an innings to watch, this was, because at least the 57 for 7 was lively because the bowling side was taking the wickets. I mean, this was just stretched out consolation game that. That second innings was honestly dreadful to watch. And so apart from Mossadegh Hussain, the batting really didn't go well at all. And as far as the bowling figures are concerned, I'm sorry, I didn't go through the bowling figures for the first innings. So, and you look at this and you see how much Ishan Malhotra's 45 runs in 2 overs actually contributed to the score. So Sompal Kami 2 for 12 of 2 overs. Sohag Ghazi 1 for 15 of 2 overs. And Pravin Tambe 1 for 15 of 2 overs. So those are the best figures. And so that's 4 for 42 in 6 overs. And yet they somehow managed to get to 120 for 4 because that's how much the 45 runs in 2 overs from Ishan Malhotra affected the game. And that was really, I mean, anything under 100, the Arabians would have been happy chasing. But when it went to that stage, to 120, with the Arabians struggling to post, decent totals, and also they would have been deflated by the fact that they had the game in control, and then Anwar Ali was able to play that innings because he played very well, and also Ishan Malhotra kind of missed his lengths, and so that's the reason why they would have been deflated. And this was a very, apart from Mossadegh Hussain, it was a very dreary innings to watch. And if you look at the bowling figures here for the Deccan Gladiators, so someone got 1 for 13 in 2 overs. Then Imtiaz Ahmed, who struggled, actually bowled his fair share of wides down the leg side because of the swing he was getting, and he still managed to bowl none for 19 in 2 overs. So really, he's not given many runs outside of the extras. And Imran Tahir 1 for 20 in 2 overs, and Zamir, I think I'm trying to think what his second name is, but yes, definitely Zamir. And so the player who I said gave 23 runs in 1 over in the first game he played against the Northern Warriors, he got 1 for 17 in 2 overs, and I thought he bowled very well today. And Zahoor Khan, once again, he's been excellent throughout this whole tournament, none for 16 in 2 overs. And now I'm trying to remember who the bowler who I said got 1 for 13 is, which, I mean, I'll try and see if I can remember. But yeah, those are the bowling figures. So 5 bowlers used, and all bowling 2 overs. And really, it was just the fact that the good figures from Zahoor Khan and Zamir, and the 1 for 13, and Imtiaz Ahmed, it helped the cause. And even though Imran Tahir gave 20 runs in his 2 overs, the other bowlers kind of formed the cushioning. And so even if you look at it, the most expensive economy rate was 10 and over, which is a baseline in T10. And so they were never really hurt. And so 91 for 3 in turnovers. And I can't actually believe I've been spending this long even talking about this first game, because it was honestly, that second innings was terrible to watch. So then there's the second game. So the Qalandars versus the Delhi Bulls. And so the Qalandars, they didn't really look themselves from the start, I would say. Shahjil Khan tried to pull Fido Edwards. And the thing is, it wasn't that short, the length, and he just tried to pull Fido Edwards and it hit the off stump. And so that's how, I think that's how the first wicket fell. And then Tom Banton scored 26 off 20. Then again, it's a decent rate to be scoring at, but not in a T10. And as I talked about with Mohammad Hafiz and Shoaib Malik in a previous day, it's that you can look solid and settled, and you can be scoring a very acceptable rate, but 26 or 20, even Tom Banton would have been disappointed with that, because he definitely did look like he was gonna kick on, because as I said, in that kind of innings he did look very settled. But unfortunately, after getting out, especially being a set batsman, he wouldn't have wanted that to happen. And so this innings, Sohail Akhtar got dismissed by Dwayne Bravo for 14, and that's his lowest score in the tournament, which shows how good he's been. And I think only the second time he's been dismissed in the tournament. So this innings was a very, I would say, once again, it was a very pretty uniform innings. And actually towards the end, the rate did decrease a bit, because there was in fact, they actually had to get 20 runs off the last over to get out to 107 for 6. And Samit Patel scored a brilliant 18 of 5 that really gave them that kick to get to 107. So the bowling figures, Waqas Maqsood came back and bowled very well once again with none for 19 in 2 overs. Shiraz Ahmed kind of struggled today. He bowled 1 very good Yorker to Ben Dunk, but apart from that, he bowled 4 wides and 1 no ball. And his first over was worse than his second, but I would say his first over kind of set the tone of how he bowled, and it's a one-off game. It was an off game for him because he's been excellent throughout the tournament. But 1 for 27 in 2 overs for him, and Naeem Young bowled today, and he bowled very well with 1 for 18 in 2 overs. And Dwayne Bravo, another good set of figures for him after, apart from the last 2 games, including this one, he has got some tapping in this tournament. So 1 for 18 in 2 overs for Dwayne Bravo, and especially getting Sohail Akhtar out. I mean, he can take confidence from that. And Fido Edwards, kind of given a cushioning by the bowlers. Some of the bowlers going for less than 10 over as an economy rate, and so 2 for 25, getting the wickets with other bowlers making sure they go under 10 and over. It kind of balances out. So all of that added up to 107 for 6, and there was something else which would have made the score even lower because I believe there was 13 extras. So here's the thing, it would have actually been 94 for 6. So it's not realistic to not have any extras, especially as how we've seen the tournament go on. But I feel like the number of extras that there have been very unacceptable. There have been so many no balls in the tournament and wides, and so honestly, even if there was like 5 extras max, which is still you would want to get that down as well, but it would have been 8 runs less, so 99 for 6, and it restricted them to under 100. So it's these kind of things where, yes, they won the game at a canter in the end, but even the 13 extras was the reason why the Qalandars' score even looked a bit respectable. And so the Delhi Bulls walked out of bat, and as I said, in fact, the most economical figures for the Qalandars was Sohail Tanveer, who bowled 1 over and none for 8. And I'm not sure whether what happened to him or not. I mean, I still feel like he could have bowled another one considering what was going on, but it is what it is. And Evan Lewis scored 48 of 18 not out. Rahmanullah Gurbaz scored 17 of 12. And Ravi Bopara 37 of 15. And it was a mixture of them bowling in the slot to him and also them, him just batting brilliantly, especially when they bowled Yorkers, manoeuvring the field over the offside and over extra cover. I thought he played some very good shots, and 37 of 15. And Niall O'Brien said this, and I'm going to be saying this as well. Niall O'Brien said this, a few games before, that he hasn't seen Ravi Bopara, honestly, bat much better off late or look as settled as he has now. And look, Ravi Bopara has been, he's been very good in all the leagues that he has played in, but I'm saying that especially in this T10, if you look at his T10 career, he hasn't actually batted that much, so his numbers may not look that great as a batsman, but really, whenever he's batted, he's looked assured, and this season, I really think, at number 3, he's looked very assured, probably the most assured I've seen him in the last few years, and he has played well in, the last few years, so I really think that with the shots that he plays, he's been excellent to watch in this tournament. He's made an impact whenever he's walked out of bat, and I really think he's been excellent in this tournament. So the Delhi Bulls, another crushing, they've destroyed their opposition yet again, and they've done this a few times in this tournament, and they finished top of the table, and also because of their net run rate, which isn't bad by any means for the Qalandars, but they finished third, so with the Northern Warriors finishing second, and so the Qalandars would have been, the whole point of this game was to finish in the top 2 so you can get the second bite of the cherry, as we've seen in the IPL qualification scenarios, where, as in 1 and 2, the winner of that goes straight to the finals, whereas the loser of that was going to have to play, the second eliminator from the winner between 3rd and 4th, who the person who loses the 3rd and 4th would be knocked out. And so that was the whole point of this game, and the Qalandars would be disappointed because they won 5 games, on the trot in the league stage, and that's the reason why they would have been really thinking that they should have won this game. And this game was kind of summed up for them when Shahid Khan dropped an absolute sitter. He was tracking back, and even then he was kind of it was a walk back really, and he just went like this, and you thought he was going to catch it, and somehow the ball just popped out of his hands and fell in front of him, and don't know how that happened, but we all drop catches, but that game kind of summed up how out of sorts the Qalandars looked in this game. And look, you will have a bad game here and there, but the timing of the bad game hasn't been great for them, but I'm not going to say that this is going to affect them too much because they do have confidence from the other 5 games. And so then it was the last game. So this game was the one I was looking forward to the most. And this was between the Team Abu Dhabi and the Bangla Tigers. And so this game was effectively a knockout because whoever won, they would get into fourth place. So Team Abu Dhabi batted first, and Chris Gayle was he was gone for one of three balls, LBW by an excellent delivery from George Garton, that it swung back in, and it was plum LBW, and Chris Gayle 1 off 3. So then Paul Sterling scored 64 of 32 not out, and I really thought that I felt very happy for him because we've seen him score a few quick fire 20s, and he's actually looked good in every game he's played, but he's not really been able to get the big score. And so him getting in this game, a knockout fixture, I thought it was very good for him and the team, and it's he's such a good player. It's really enjoyable to watch him bat, and so yeah, I was very happy that he got those runs. Luke Wright scored 27 off 18, kind of just being the scoring runs as well, and being there whilst Paul Sterling was exploding. And then Jamie Overton scored 12 off 6 not out, and those were the top scores from the Team Abu Dhabi innings, and they got to 116 for 3. And I really think that the team stood up in Chris Gayle's absence, and especially I thought that there was a stage where when they were I think they were at the 102 mark, and it was when Joe Clark got out for a duck as well. And so yeah, I think he got out for a duck, and so it was, I thought the Bangla Tigers were in front at that point, and then the score kind of went to 116 for 3, which you thought was even. So the Bangla Tigers could chase it down, but also Team Abu Dhabi have a good enough bowling attack to defend the score. And so from the start, it was pretty much a one-man show. It was Johnson Charles' 59 of 23 in the second innings. And actually, before I move on to that, sorry, I'm doing this again, but I'm saying, so I talked about Matisha in a previous video, and it turns out that the person who I mentioned, and I said he bowled in the slot, who had the Malinga action in another game, was actually Matisha. And the reason why is I was confused at first, but I didn't know, is because one, he hasn't bowled many overs in the tournament, and two, his name was put down as Patirana. So there is a spinner in Sri Lanka also called Patirana, and because I did have online school and I conveniently missed the overs that he bowled, even though I got to watch a large part of those games. I all this time I thought it was a spinner, but that spinner was the one who bowled rather than Matisha. And because I definitely was thinking that for all these players who have kind of Malinga like actions, he would be someone who you'd want to take a look at. And it turns out that he was bowling, although he didn't bowl that much in this tournament. But today, 2 for 9, he bowled excellently, and Farooqi also bowled excellently with none for 18 in 2 overs. And so, on mention for those two that they bowled very well. And coming back to the Bangla Tigers innings, it was a one-man show, 59 of 23, and it was 59 of 23 the Johnson Charles hit, and apart from that, the high score was 12 of 14 by Tom Moores. Andre Fletcher got off a 3 of 7, and already Andre Fletcher getting out kind of dampened their chances a bit. And despite the fact others have stood up, you'd really, in a knockout game, you'd want, Andre Fletcher and Johnson Charles to stand up. And so Chirag Suri also got out, someone who's been confidently getting runs in this tournament. And there really wasn't much for them. It was all on Johnson Charles. And when he got out, after being dropped once by Paul Sterling caught the catch not long after. And so a sigh of relief for him and the team. And so Johnson Charles got off for a brilliant 59 of 23, but just wasn't enough in the end. And Farooqi came in the last over, and the first ball he kind of played this wristy shot over cover. I think, yes, it was, he played this wristy shot over cover, or just wide long off, and it was a ridiculous shot. And even Jamie Overton acknowledged that, who, by the way, got 4 for 24 in his 2 overs. I feel that he didn't necessarily bowl that well, but he did bowl a few decent balls here and there, but he didn't necessarily bowl that well. But then again, 4 for 24, you're bowling, he got 3 of his wickets in the last over. And honestly, when you're aided by, if you look at the excellent figures, Rohan Mustafa, none for 9 in 2 overs, including a power, kind of a floating power play over that went for 3 runs that kind of really, it really put a shoe in for the team Abu Dhabi, or more than put a shoe in, kind of really changed the momentum of the game and really confidently it was a concrete change to say that Team Abu Dhabi were in front. And so an excellent thing from him to only give 3 runs in that over. And then Obed McCoy 2 for 10 in 2 overs. And here's the thing, consistently throughout this tournament, more so in his first over that he bowls, he's more or less managed to give less than 6 runs and over every single first over that he's bowled as far as I've seen. So he has been hit sometimes in the second over, especially we saw in the game against the Northern Warriors. But apart from that, I really think consistently he's been able to bowl an over that's gone for less than 6 runs in his first over. And in T10, even 1 over that goes for that is just magnificent. And so 2 for 10 in 2 overs he got. And even Naveen ul-Haq, you may think 2 for 20 in 2, but his last over, he got 2 wickets and gave 3 runs after being hit for 17 in his first over. So it was an excellent over that he bowled in the second one. And Tom Helm, I mean, he got 1 for 29 in 2, but really he bowled 0 for 8 in his previous game. So honestly, if you done that well before, and as I said, from Jamie Overton and Tom Helm, the cushion that the other bowlers gave, I say less than 10 runs and over. I mean, these bowlers gave it, so Naveen ul-Haq Naveen ul-Haq 10 runs and over. But if you look at Ubud McCoy and Rohan Mustafa, 4.5 for Rohan Mustafa and 5 and over for Ubud McCoy. So really you have such a cushion that you can afford to give runs. And you didn't try to give runs, but it just happened that way. And especially after you bowled 0 for 8 in your previous game, it isn't that bad. And he took 1 wicket as well. So that was that, 95 for 9. And one thing that would hurt the Bangla Tigers, that they bowled actually 12 extras in their bowling effort. And so there's been a fair share of no balls and wides in this tournament. And honestly, they add, especially with the way that it's at least 8 to 10, at least 5 to 8, I would say, or 5's being too kind, at least 8 every single innings. And 8 runs added onto a total, it just isn't too great for the chasing side. And especially we've seen a lot of teams win games in chasing because they haven't really just gone out and hit boundaries. But it still isn't very ideal to be giving this many extras, especially no balls. I mean, I understand, catching in the field, but how can rust be attributed to, especially we've seen the size of the front foot no balls, and also we've seen a few over the waist height no balls as well. Even waist height no balls, you could say, is rust. Like that far over the line for a front foot no ball. I mean, how does rust? You can't put that to rust. I mean, all right, you could say these bowlers may not have bowled such no balls consistently, but I'm saying, or some of them have, but even then, this far over the line, and even then they may have, but I'm saying that it's just not it's not too great. Even if you are, rusty. I mean, you could be rusty in the field, I understand, but front foot no balls and rust, for me, they just don't go together. And so I just want to finish this video by talking about some ideas so Maratha Arabians, for example, and there's one player who I'm a big fan of. However, he's been short of cricket, and especially I don't think he's really suited for this format, and that's Shoaib Malik, because he scores an acceptable rate, yes, but with Mohammad Hafiz, who, yes, he uses his skills to score at a high rate, and Shoaib Malik does have those skills, but Mohammad Hafiz has played a lot of cricket, recently, and especially in T20s for Pakistan has been excellent. And whereas Shoaib Malik hasn't really played in those, and he has been short of cricket, and so he didn't have his greatest run in the Lanka Premier League either. And so it's kind of like he does score an acceptable rate for T20s, not for T10. And so the problem is when you're relying on these two experienced players, it's all good having them in the squad, but this format especially needs some exuberance. And so you look at these players like Nicholas Poore, and you even look like Mohammad Wasim Agza, who, for example, who no one really knew who he was before this tournament, and he's been hitting boundaries all over the place. And so it takes exuberance as well. And so honestly, Shoaib Malik, as good as how much of a legend he is, I'm not really sure the T10 format is for him, and that's with no disrespect. I mean, he's a champion player in T20, he's a T20 legend, but and then he's very good in ODIs as well. But unfortunately, I just don't think the T10 format is for him. So yeah, that was honestly for these games. As you could see, they kind of the last game. I as you could tell, the first game was a bit of a consolation, and that was honestly very dreary second innings. The second game, once again, it was a bit of a rollover, and the third game, it was for a while it seemed like it would be okay, but the second innings you never really saw the Bengal Tigers being in it. So that was the games for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?